In the last video, I went over the first 50 pictures I made in 2022, so this time I'll be going over the next 50. Though I do have a bit more than 100, so I might need to make one more video after this. I didn't realize how much art I have. This one was based off of a dream. I've had some other pictures based off of dreams, but I had a very clear image for this one. Like, if you compared my dream with this picture, it'd be very similar. The layout of everything, Teddy being right in the middle, it was just a very clear picture. The colors in this one are a bit different than what I usually do, but I think it turned out well. I also like the paint strokes you can see in the windy, stormy place up there. And also the dandelion fluffs floating around. It just looks nice. Here's the first character concept art. This is the character that appeared in the picture in the last video. The circus clown guy. Just some sort of weird magician guy with cards and stuff. And instead of different expressions, he just has different masks. Here's Teddy's house. A very nice, warm, cozy interior place. This picture has a big focus on green and that kind of teal color. I think it works really well. Also, the design of all those wooden cupboards up there looks nice. I've seen some cupboard designs like that and I just really like how it looks. Also, those are all security camera monitors. This guy might have a bit of a security problem. Here's another famous painting one. I believe the original painting is called The Girl with the Pearl Earrings. But this one is The Blob with the Spaghetti. I think the spoon is a good replacement for the earrings. I was actually originally going to do cereal instead of spaghetti, but I had a really hard time getting it to work well. Also, I couldn't decide if that kind of long part on the back should be cereal or like the milk falling, and then he has like a bowl on his head with milk pouring out of it. I don't know, it just didn't really work. Spaghetti works a lot better. I wonder if nachos could work as well. Here's a remake of one I did before. Just a very chaotic blender moment. When you compare these pictures together, you can really see how different they are. And the older one was only like made a year or two ago. It really isn't that old, it's just they're very different looking. In the original one, I was really trying to go for a very stylized look, different from what I was normally doing at the time. In the remake, I didn't try to do this, though I kind of wish I did. I want to try getting better at doing that kind of, I don't know what you'd call it. I guess the style I have now is kind of sketchy, almost a tiny bit realistic with the lighting. I kind of want to try doing this look with like not really many shadows, very smooth, a lot of sharp edges, and I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain a style. There is one picture I do later on that I think turned out pretty well and is definitely one of my favorite pictures I've done. It was very hard to make, but it looks good. I'll tell you when we get to it. This one also takes place on Port Ariel, the place I showed off earlier. I don't think I said this before, but Port Ariel takes place on a big boat. The entire city is just one giant ship. So the fish off the side of it, you'd probably need a very, very long fishing rod. You can kind of see in the background just how big it is. Also, the fish here are kind of weird. Like, some of them look cute, but then some of them are a bit creepy looking. Also, that kind of looks like a jellyfish that was just stuffed in a jar. A lot of cute things mixed with kind of creepy things. That's something you might notice from my art. I like doing cute things, but then also just having something that's a bit odd or a bit eerie. That's something I've always liked doing. Here's a nice underwater river one. I wanted to try doing something underwater. I haven't really done many underwater ones, so I don't think I really got this quite right. I wanted it to be a very lush, overgrown underwater space with a lot of fish everywhere. I think it turned out fine, other than the fact that it doesn't completely look like it's underwater. I think it's acceptable. If I did it again, I could definitely do it a lot better though. The style of this one is a bit more painted like, and I actually kind of like that. That might be a style I try to do more in the future. Also, this was a remake of a very old one of some blobbers cooking beans. I'm actually quite happy with how this one turned out. I think something about that painted style just kind of looks nice. When I used to make art, I used to always just be thinking like how to make it the most realistic as possible, because I just figured that that was the best way of doing it. But actually purposely making it look like it's painted or making some purposeful mistakes that a brush would make, it just looks nice. Same with like watercolor too. I don't know, just something about that is nice. Here's more character concept art. This one is Capitra. Very odd character. Then again, I guess a lot of my characters are a bit odd. I actually had a fair bit of trouble getting his head shape right. It's kind of an odd shape. When I was trying to make it in Blender, I had even more trouble. It's a very strange shape. Here's some Arctic volcanic gulf. I wanted to try doing a very cold place mixed with something hot like lava. So they're playing golf with a giant ice ball on some type of lava ice volcano. Very strange mix. I can't imagine it's too easy to push a giant ice ball with a golf club, but they seem to be managing somewhat. Here's just some weird potion designs. Didn't really have any idea for these, just wanted to make something cool. The top left one is supposed to be some sort of water potion, and then there's like a almost like chocolate cookie type potion, and then maybe like a heart potion. That's like a magnet potion, a jam, well it's just jam, leafy potion, spicy potion, and then green. Also, I imagine these potions aren't actually potions. Like, I imagine that they're just meant to look like they do something, when really they're just probably some type of liquid that's dyed. Also, the jam one is probably literally just jam. I first wanted to draw some hedges with this picture, but then I got a bit carried away, and now there's these weird overgrown grass hedge designs. Kind of like old buildings completely covered in greenery. This one was fun to do. Just things covered in grass. It was also at this point that I began to get really tired of drawing skies and began doing some weird things. Before, I just tried to make it look like a realistic sky or something. But here, as you can see, I'm starting to warp it a bit. It's not much, it's not too noticeable, but when you draw skies this much, you just get really tired of doing it and start wanting to do weird things. I've noticed I've been doing that more as time goes on. When you draw something over and over again, you stop trying to make it look like how it's supposed to look and start exaggerating it in weird ways. I really can't imagine how people can draw normal landscape scenes without just completely breaking and making it all warped. I just get so tired of doing that. I need to make it weird and somehow. Here's chocolate, followed by a bunch of blobbers with instruments, and also a dragon for some reason. I can't imagine they're making very good music, but they seem to be enjoying it. I really wanted to do some weird landscapes with this one. You can see the weird layered hills in the background. They're strange, but I like doing them. When I was first making things in Blender, and I really didn't know what I was doing, I would mainly make landscapes by kind of just stepping them up. They'd just be different layers of grass. They didn't really slope, because I didn't really know how to do that. And I kind of like that look, so here I kind of tried to copy it. Just different layers of ground stacked on top of each other. Here's a very different one. For this one, I completely changed my style. It was pretty difficult to just do something completely different like this, but I really like how it turned out, and it's probably one of my favorite pictures I've made in 2022. I don't really plan on doing something like it again because, well, it's kind of hard to just completely change your style, but I don't know, I like this one. It was so weird to make it, to go from like sketching in colors and shadows to making it very sharp. With my current style, if I want there to be light on something, I kind of just think about what direction it's coming from, what objects are around it and would bounce off of it, how matte it is or reflective, and then just kind of go from there, sketching in light where I need it. But with this one, it's not at all like that. You don't worry about reflections at all, you just try to, I don't know, just do what looks right, kind of. I had a general idea of where the light was coming from, but for like the main Mew kit in the center, I didn't really focus much on that. You can see a bit of light on the top of her, but the rest is pretty much just one color. Just trying to choose colors that go together for other ones. It was a very different experience. Here's more character concept art. This guy's weird. He's got a disco head, and yeah, he's definitely one of the weirder characters I've made. It was tricky making those kind of reflective sequined balls he has. I didn't realize it, but drawing sequins are like really difficult because they're just a bunch of different circles that are all reflective, all reflecting different lights in different ways. You can't draw every single one of them because there's so many. So yeah, they're probably one of the more difficult things to draw, even more than water or ice. I should try drawing them again. I haven't done them in a while. I guess there's just not many things that use them. I should try drawing sequins behind ice underwater. That would definitely be a challenge. I actually kind of want to do that now. Here's another musical one, a blob band. Similar to the last one, though these guys might be making a bit better music. Or maybe not. They seem to be having some trouble. This was based off of another watercolor one I did. I was never really happy with the one watercolor, so I like trying to remake it here. There's also a Hoverplum miniature, probably singing along with the song. I've always imagined Hoverplums as kind of being the birds of this world. They're a bit strange to be birds, but I don't know. They kind of fit that role. Here's a theater one. There seems to be a lot of problems going on here. That guy's strings are breaking. That guy already fell. There's one uncovered in strings up there. This guy's eating the set. This guy's gonna beat him with a broom. This guy's facing the wrong way. And these guys are having some issues with their popcorn. I always like doing the blobby pictures. Just fun scenes of random stuff they do. Just fun pictures I don't really have to think too much about. Just have blobbies in weird situations doing stuff. Here's a daytime version of one of the other ones. It was the disco graveyard one. This one doesn't have all the glowing lights and floor pads, but still has some decorations around, like some disco balls, or mini disco balls. Also some ribbons and stuff. I really like that mix of disco graveyard. It just somehow fits so well. I like the flow of this one, how all the buildings are kind of leaning towards the center, and then the road is just going far up in the distance. And then with that big orange paint splash in the middle, it works really well. There's also something about the way I drew this one. It's kind of hard to see, but if you look closely, it's sharper than what I normally do. I don't really know how I got that look, but I want to try doing it again. I think it also just kind of looks like big brush strokes. As I said before, I think something about seeing the brush strokes just looks better. I remember at the time I actually didn't like the way this picture turned out. I thought the way I drew some of the things was bad, but it's weird. Now that I'm looking at it, I like it a lot more. Here's a recreation of one I did last year. This one's a lot better though. It's a lot more in focus. I also copied the style a bit from that Mew Kit one, the very stylized one. I like the way this one turned out a lot more than the one before. In the other picture, Winter is kind of off to the side a bit. He's not really right in the center, and the focus isn't really on him, even though it should be. In this one, he's right there, right in the middle. He also has a lot more color to him than the rest of the picture. I like the focus of this one, it's good. Here are some different costume designs for a character. Each costume is based off of a different place. I tried to add some musical things to the bottom one. Like you can see, that's supposed to look a bit like a piano, and then headphones, and then maybe like speakers or something on those gun things. The top one has some like nature things, like a straw hat, a flower pot, some leaves and flowers, some mud. And then that bottom left one is kind of like a Western design, but also for some reason he has, I think that's a butter launcher. I'm not sure why he has a butter launcher. There must have been a reason for it at some point, but I forget. Here's a nice cozy one of some blobbers making some sort of potion sap thing. I imagine this is inside of some hollowed out tree. I tried to make some cool lights for this one, like flower light bulb things, kind of naturey. I really wanted to make the rain on the window look nice, but I don't know, it didn't turn out the best. Usually when I do pictures, I kind of have one part about it that I try to challenge myself with. Like with this one, it was getting the rain on the window. And with this one, I really wanted to get that nighttime look right. I also wanted to get the wetness on the rocks to look right. I've actually remade this picture quite a few times. It's a theme that I do about once or twice every year, and I've been doing it for quite a while. It's Soup Day. I don't know what the origins of it was. I don't know why I came up with Soup Day, but it's just a day where all the blobbers really want soup, and they kind of turn into zombies. I always like trying to make these pictures feel apocalyptic. Just broken structures, a whole bunch of blobbers everywhere like zombies. I don't know. In a lot of the other pictures, the nighttime light never really looks right. It's hard to draw nighttime pictures, I find. So with this one, I wanted to get that right. And I think it's definitely better than many of the other nighttime pictures I've done. Also, the flames and fire looks kind of cool. I'm noticing with a lot of these pictures, I'm kind of going for a more stylized look, not as focused on being realistic and more just good colors. And here's another example of a stylized one. I think the idea for this was to go for kind of like a disco album cover. It's a lot more abstract than I usually do, but I think it turned out fine. This one's based off of The Last Supper, except this is definitely not their Last Supper. In fact, it's called the 100th one. I always like drawing food, as you can probably tell, so recreating The Last Supper was an obvious choice. Any opportunity I can take to draw a bunch of food, I will. I really like the colors of that sandstorm one at the start of this video, so I tried to copy that. I don't think this one turned out as well, but it's still decent. I don't know what it is about the other sandstorm one. Just something about the way it looks is different from most of my pictures, and I don't really know how to recreate that. Also, the idea for these plants was some kind of emerald fern thing. Like, instead of leaves, it has that gem emerald material. Here's another one of Port Ariel. The perspective for this one was tricky to get right. It's such a large layout. I kind of wanted to make it look like a mall, but also kind of mixed with outside. A lot of plants and water. I also try to add a lot of musical parts to the design of Port Ariel. Like if you look closely, you can almost see some music notes or piano keys hidden around the place. I actually wanted to add a lot more to this picture, but it was getting a bit too long and a bit too crowded and overwhelming, so I just kind of stopped working on it. I showed a picture before of an observatory in the desert. This is the interior of the top room. You can see part of the telescope there, some constellations, maybe some fuzzy planet things, and then some glowing stickers of stars and moons. I'm noticing with my art around this time, I seem to be kind of stuck between stylized and realistic. Some of the shadows kind of have realistic lighting to them, but then some of them are also just very stylized. I think I've gotten a bit better at that now, but I'm still not perfect at it. Here's a large frozen place. I really wanted to get that shiny ice look there. And I remember the sky was based off of those nighttime sky time lapses, where all the stars kind of make these cool streaks across the sky. And also, again, I'm noticing some of that realistic versus stylized look. Like, a lot of this picture looks stylized and not realistic. But then, like, some of the snow right on the right side, that kind of looks realistic there. I don't know. I was definitely having issues with my style around this time. Then again, I guess I always am. And here I drifted a lot more to the stylized look. I think the border I did on this one is cool. I don't usually do that. And of course, it was around Halloween at this time, so I started doing creepy things like pumpkins and scarecrows and cool lights and houses. Also, it's hard to see, but I think this guy is wearing a ghost costume, which is why he's a weird light color. Also, he seems to be trying to lick the red one for some reason. No wonder he's scared. And then here I tried to do a very realistic one. It did not turn out well. But again, you can see I'm really going between stylized and realistic. Also, I really don't like this one. I think this is where I realized I shouldn't try to do anything too realistic. I need to balance it out. That works best for me. Back over to the stylized side, now I'm doing a weird lemonade stand mech. This one was fun to do, mixing a whole bunch of random items from like a town or village. You can see some lawnmowers, some gumball machines, some ketchup and mustard bottles, some flags, I think that's a cement mixer, a pinwheel, some flower pots maybe. Just a lot of random items. I don't usually draw robots or Big Macs, but I think I should do them more. They're fun to do, especially when you're mixing weird things together. This is the first one I made a video on. Some concept art for a large airship. It was a bit tricky to record the video for the first time and keep drawing, but it was the start of me making these types of videos, which is cool. Here's some character concept art. These guys were inspired from outlets. I was really just playing around with a lot of different colors and designs. That almost looks like some sort of top hat. That's like some flower pot thing. I don't know, I don't think these were really based off of anything. Just random stuff. Also, this guy seems to be having some issues. Here's some different breads, which seems a bit odd, but this was actually an idea for a collectible in a game. I really don't have much experience with making games, and at the time I drew this, I had no idea if these would actually be used for anything. But now, I think they will be. Also, these were only a few of the ideas I came up with. I have a lot more that I didn't draw. Here I wanted to try doing an upside down one. It's a bit disorienting, so here's another view of it, flipped around the other way. Also, I don't know why this guy is trying to fix a tree. I don't think the tree needs fixing, but yeah, that's what I call this one, tree fixer. This blobber also seems to be quite confused by what he's doing. Here's another remake of one I did before. I definitely got the feel of this one a lot better. I also like the weird hats I made for the blobbers. I always like coming up with weird hat designs. I think the snow in this one looks decent too. It's like a snowstorm is covering up the last bits of fall. At this point, Halloween was getting fairly close, I think. So here's another Halloween one. I really wanted to make some extreme mountains and hills. Even the houses are a bit bent. I think it's important to kind of guide the viewer's eye to certain points of the picture. Like here, the pathway, and a lot of the mountain brushstrokes all kind of lead towards the center, or at least they all kind of flow in some direction. You can really see this at the top left, kind of with the skies and the hills. Also, having more important parts of the picture be brighter, and then some of the less important parts, like the corners or shadows, be darker and not as saturated is also a good thing to do. Here's another Halloween one. A bunch of blobbers going trick-or-treating outside of a doorstep. I like the fisheye lens perspective I did with this one. I try to do a lot of fisheye lens perspectives, but I think this one worked out pretty well. Also, it's a bit hard to see, but that's a Halloween gingerbread house. And for the decorations, instead of having something like bats, those are hover plums up there. I remember remember I wanted to show more of the inside of the house with this one, but it just wasn't really working out, so in the end, I kind of just left it with this blank orange-yellow interior. You can kind of still see a bit of the wall there. I think it was just getting a bit too crowded and hard to make out anything. I think that's why I gave up with it. Here's, I think, the final Halloween one, the Cookie Factory. I made an animation about this place as well. I made a picture of the cookie bakery the year before, so I wanted to do it again this year. Except this year, it's a lot bigger, and also seems to be a bit on fire. I also liked making the unique cookie designs. They're not really based off of anything, just some strange designs that look nice. Something I like about the fisheye lens perspective is that it kind of bends everything around the center. Like you can see around the edges of the picture, all the walls are kind of warped, all kind of focusing on the blobber in the center, the guy to the left with the cookies, and maybe even that blobber up there with the chef hat. Here's a pink tank with some blobbies in it selling cookies. A bit of an odd mix, but I guess that's to be expected by now. I made the colors a lot more saturated in this one, and also for the shadows on the wheat, instead of doing something like making a dark orange color for the shadows, I actually went for a more purple blue color. I don't think that's as realistic, but it looks nice. I didn't actually use many dark colors for this whole picture. They're pretty much just orangier colors for the light, and then more shifted to blue and purple for the shadows. It's a different way of shading things that I don't normally do, but it definitely gives the picture a lot more of a stylized look. I was a bit inspired from Day of the Dead for this one. A lot of blue, greens, and purples were used here. And again with the shadows, I didn't darken them so much as I just shifted them. In darker spots I used blue, in lighter spots I used purple/pink/orange. You can really see that with the buildings in the back. They're not darker so much as they're just different colors. It almost makes the buildings look like they're glowing, which is a cool effect. Here's Mint's Hattery, a place for hats. I really wanted to make this one feel cozy. A lot of reds and orange were used, and also a lot of weird hat designs. As I said before, I like making weird hats, so this was the perfect picture for that. There are also some blobby nutcrackers. I also wanted to give this place a bit of an older design to it. A lot of browns and fancy design patterns. And of course, since Christmas was coming up, a lot of Christmassy things here. Though I imagine this place is probably set in a cold environment, and it's probably always decorated like this. I wanted to make a banner to be used for places, so I finally got around to making that. This one took quite a while, as you can see. Having all these characters and colors and places, it took a while. I originally wanted to have a lot more to it too, like different snapshots of different places around the world, but it got a bit too chaotic just adding the characters in, so I just had to stop with that and just make some weird plants and things like that for the background. Just make it pretty abstract. In the end, I think it turned out pretty well, and I do not want to make one of these again for a long time. This one has an isometric perspective to it, which I don't think I've done before. This guy set up a lemonade stand in a place that doesn't seem like they'd approve of it. I mean, it's very gray, and everyone here doesn't look particularly nice. I also tried blurring the background for this one, which was a bit tricky to draw. I eventually resorted to just using a blur effect on it. I want to incorporate more blurred parts into my pictures, as it has a cool effect. It also kind of makes things feel miniature, which was another effect I was trying to go for this picture. Kind of like you're looking down at a miniature world. Here's some character art for another character. I never planned on making this character, but I kind of needed a character to fill certain roles, and none of the other characters I'd ever made fit those roles well, so he had to be made. This guy might end up being the most commonly used character. She's going to be needed for a lot of things. Here's a completely normal Thanksgiving scene. Seems like everyone's having a good time and there's no problem here at all. I think this is one of the pictures that it could have used a bit of blurring on it. Like in the background there, using some blur, and then on some of the objects that are close to the camera. I think a blurring effect would have looked nice here. And I mean, I did do it a tiny bit when I was just drawing it. I didn't put as much focus into some of the objects up close, but still, a blur effect would have just been easier and would have looked better. I usually try to draw pictures with accurate or mostly accurate perspectives, but here I just went completely stylized. The hills are extremely rounded and all the houses really do not make sense at all from any sort of perspective, but I just wanted to go crazy with this one, do something very stylized and very weird. The edges of the picture is all kind of rounded, almost like a fisheye lens perspective, but then the middle section is not really. And here's the first time this character has shown up in a picture, other than the banner and the concept art for him. Here's another picture that was made for a video, concept art for a snowy village. I don't have much to say about this one since I said everything in that video I made, but this is actually the 100th picture, so after this picture I met my goal. But it wasn't the end of the year yet. It was getting close, but I still made a few more pictures before the year was done. So now I'll quickly go through those. For the 101st picture, it's the Burgerberg, a kind of restaurant built into an iceberg. I tried to do this one a long time ago, but it didn't really work out then. But I eventually managed to make it now. Something about drawing the ice at the time, I think, was the thing that gave me the most trouble. I do like how the light from the windows goes through the ice. As I said before, ice is tricky to draw. Here's the interior of a ship's cabin. This is actually the ship that I drew before, the Airship 1. When making this, I kind of mixed different ideas for ships' cabins and hotels together to make this kind of fancy yet small feeling space. I think it turned out decently well. I also tried to match the outside of the ship's colors. Here's another one of Port Ariel, high up on top of a skyscraper or some building like that. I also imagine that's like a cafe there with one of those outlet guys. It's hard to make out what that is, but the idea for that was water above a glass floor. Because it's hard to see, I would like to do that again, but make it a lot more clear what it is. Here it just kind of looks like some blue light, but yeah. I just think water above glass would look cool, but it also may be a bit tricky to draw. Since Christmas was coming up around this time, here's a wintry one. A train going around an icy mountain. I imagine some blobbers are driving this, which is why it looks like it's going a little too fast. It's probably a bit dangerous to be driving a train with this sort of weather, but they are blobbers, so what can you expect? Here's another Christmas one. The blobbers seem to be preparing for Christmas. I like the perspective I did with this one. Also, the colors are a bit softer than what I normally use, but I think it works well here. A lot of blues, purples, and reds, well, and also kind of greens. Here's one of a gingerbread house with a blobber in the background. This was a bit tricky to do because I've never drawn a blobber this close before. He takes up most of the picture. I felt like I should add a lot of detail to him, but because blobbers are just smooth, you can't really add more detail to that. Blobbers are things that should be looked at from a distance and not this close. At least the gingerbread looks nice. I always like drawing Christmas lights and just lights and darkness, so that's what gave me the idea to do this one. A trail of blobbers with different light-covered objects, such as a present, a light bulb for some reason. I don't know why you have to wrap that in lights, but he did that, and it's hard to tell what that is, but the idea for it was a fishbowl. I did a picture similar to this last year, only in that one the blobbers had a bit of trouble, and I imagine before long the same thing is going to happen with these. It only takes one blobber to go off the path before they all get messed up. Finally, we've reached the last one. This one was, of course, made for Christmas. As you can see, the blobbers are waiting for Santa, only they're waiting for him in a different sort of way. I don't think they really like Santa. At least it looks cozy, as long as you ignore those things. Well, that's it. That's everything. I really didn't think it'd take this long to go through all of them, but I guess it makes sense. Even if I only spent a minute on each picture, that's still more than an hour. I don't know what I'm gonna do next year, since my goal for next year is 150 pictures. So yeah, it's gonna take a while. I'm also curious to see how my art will have improved next year compared to this one. Already, just comparing the picture I just showed to last Christmas, there is a big improvement. And compared to 2 years ago, my art's practically unrecognizable. Not only my style, but even the way I go about adding light and shadow is completely different. The thing I wonder is, will I try to make my art more realistic, or will I go towards stylized more? I've definitely switched between the two styles a lot, I've noticed as I've gone through the art. If I had to guess, I think I'm probably going to go towards stylized more. With realistic, everything works a certain way, and I feel like you can only do that so many times before you start to get tired of it, and then do something more unrealistic. Because at least with stylized, you can do it differently. If you're drawing the same picture over again, you can do the lighting differently, or not even have lighting. I don't know. I'll have to see.